Today, on the Muluka River, at the southern border of present-day Ocean County, New Jersey, you can find researchers scavenging the bottom for shipwrecks of Revolutionary War battles, soon to be washed away forever.
So we just went over the side of it. This is it sitting up here.
So what you're seeing are the frames, the sides of the hull, and this is the keel where the frames are attached. The only thing that's left of a ship that was burned to the waterline by the British when they came in and attacked Chestnut Neck.
The importance of the Muluka River Basin is a lesson in military geography. We're talking about an entire quadrant of the Western Hemisphere, funneling in shipment and arms to Little Egg Harbor. The geographical Muluka River Basin, as an access point to the Atlantic Ocean, was critical. In fact, it was irreplaceable. This is not just a land war by any means. The most powerful arm of the British military was, in fact, the Royal Navy.
Imagine a time when the river was full of sailboats, like a sailing regatta. The Union, the country, didn't have a navy especially, and there were almost 17,000 private vessels during the war that would carry goods to all parts of the 13 colonies. And the British needed to stop them.
With the British occupying New York, the Continental Congress needed access to the coast. And in this region, the Atlantic fed into bays like Barnegat, pushing inland through rivers like the Muluka, where small towns dotted the shoreline.
These little towns had 10, 12 houses at the most. They had to grow food, they had to go out in the bay. So they were very independent people and they didn't like being told what to do.
British were getting complaints from all the citizens in New York City, Manhattan. They weren't getting the goods that they ordered from England.
Facing the largest navy in the world, the Americans had only a small fleet, so they relied on privateers, privately owned vessels sanctioned to capture British ships and disrupt their supply lines. Near the mouth of the Muluka River, then known as the Little Egg Harbor River, sat a small privateer stronghold, a town called Chestnut Neck, known today as Port Republic.
Batstow Village was the site of ammunitions production for the Continental Army. They were using the natural iron deposits in the soil here in South Jersey to their advantage to make musket balls, cannonballs.
Our government, let's say they were seated most of the time at Carpenter's Hall. Those steps at Carpenter's Hall are only 35 miles from the forks at Batstow.
When the Revolution came along, Chestnut Neck is an ideal base of operations for the privateer trade. It's pretty much halfway from Cape May to New York City.
The British knew about this site and its importance to the Patriot efforts against them.
So they decided to wipe out the base.
In the 2 months before Chestnut Neck, there were 16 ships that were snatched from the British. I call them the 16 straws that broke the British camel's back. And that's what causes them to have to come to Chestnut Neck to do something about it.
The battle for Chestnut Neck was as much a battle for revenge as it was for General Howe and Clinton, British generals in Manhattan, who had to deal with the backlash of the privateers capturing all the ships that had all the cargo that they were expecting to come from England.
A local militia, led by Colonel Richard Summers, responded with more than 200 men. But as the scale of the threat became clear and word reached Philadelphia, the Continental Congress turned to an innovative mixed cavalry and infantry unit commanded by Casimir Pulaski.
Pulaski was an interesting character.
My understanding is that Franklin, among other things, was in Europe to recruit people. This is not so long after the partition of Poland. The Polish soldiers who lost the revolt, lost being divided up, have to find some place to go fight. So Franklin gives him a letter of recommendation. He comes over to the United States.
He wasn't really happy where he was, so he went to the Continental Congress and wanted to form like a Roman-style legion. And that's what he did. So that's why it was called Pulaski's Legion.
So he recruits, and he recruits from other immigrants. He recruits from the prison camps, so he gets people who were British soldiers to join over.
They called him the father of the American cavalry because of Brandywine, where he charged in to save Washington.
The myth, the legend of the American Revolution as being this true American thing is not really true, because a lot of the soldiers, a lot of the leaders are part of this immigration.
When word came to Philadelphia, Pulaski was in Trenton and he was ordered down to Tuckerton to drive him away.
The British arrived in a sizable 13-ship flotilla. So that sets in motion a series of events where Pulaski prepares for an epic cannonball-like march out of Trenton. That very afternoon, we have the grand assault at Chestnut Neck.
The enemy meditated an attack on Little Egg Harbor. Colonel Proctor reached the neighborhood of Egg Harbor on the 7th, where he was joined by only 50 militia. This force was not sufficient to oppose the enemy, who landed about 500 men, burnt all the houses, and did considerable other damage.
There was a fort designed to protect Chestnut Neck. It was supposed to have cannons in it. Well, when the British got there, the Americans didn't have any cannons to protect it. They had sold them to privateers to go out and attack. This is why the, quote, Battle of Chestnut Neck was pretty one-sided.
When the British finally did reach Chestnut Neck on the Mullica River, they destroyed that village. Their plans to get to Batstow had been thwarted.
Major Ferguson was the ground forces commander for the British.
Although Pulaski is a big hero in American history, Ferguson had invented a breech-loading musket, and he was considered one of the best shots in the British Army.
The detachment, landing with ease, soon drove into the woods, the skulking banditti.
Ferguson writes to his superior, General Sir Henry Clinton, a few days after the attack, reporting a victory over Chestnut Neck. But in the following days, as Benedict Arnold reports to George Washington.
About this time, Count Pulaski's corps were watching their motions.
Over the course of the next few days, the British crossed the Mullica out of present-day Atlantic County and into Ocean County. And what happens next depends on the account.
I cannot tell you what happened there because there are many confusing stories. It's just interesting that the same event can be colored in so many different directions.
We had information by a captain who deserted to us that Pulaski had cantoned himself within a mile of a bridge. 250 men were embarked and pushed forward upon the infantry of the Legion, cantoned in different houses. They were almost entirely cut to pieces. It's been a night attack. Little quarter could of course be given. We numbered among their dead about 50.
At the same time Ferguson reports to his superiors, Pulaski's account is reaching Congress and is published in a Philadelphia newspaper.
You must know that an officer deserted 2 days ago. The enemy, excited without doubt by this, attacked at 3 in the morning with 400 men. I hastened with my cavalry to support the infantry. The enemy soon fled in great disorder. Our loss is about 25 or 30 men and some horses. That of the enemy appears to be much more considerable, about 25 men, who retired into the country and the woods, and we cannot find them. The general opinion is that they are concealed by the Tories in the neighborhood.
I would not assume that you were safe to share your thoughts and feelings on the war with just anybody around you.
There's sort of 3 groups of people here. was the Loyalists of maybe a third, Patriots maybe a third, and then there was the Quakers, or sort of in between. And so they all interacted, they were all looking at each other, spying on each other.
It's very difficult to know who to trust. It's not always like this village is patriot, that town is loyalist.
It was like a mini triple civil war almost in some ways, where the Quakers were sort of on both sides, selling people stuff, buying stuff. And then of course the Loyalists and the Patriots could be on the same family even.
In the competing accounts of the affair at Egg Harbor, the stories begin to branch into versions.
In one version, Chestnut Neck is an effort to get to Batstow, and their boats get stuck. And so in version number 1, they say, oh, we're going to take another route. We're going to go across the land, and they go into Osborne Island. They cross the little bridge that's there, and 2 things stop them from doing that. A, there's a remote station for Pulaski's forward unit, and the second thing is that Proctor's artillery is located on the hill where the Little Egg Harbor meeting house is, right next to the lake. Version number 2 is that the British are very frustrated. They've been sent down on this major expedition. They have all these cannons, all these ships, all these soldiers, and they have nothing to do. And they're sitting, waiting for the tide to change. Pulaski's Legion is made up of many people they later called galvanized soldiers. That means that prisoners are given the option, you can rot here in jail, or you can join the other side. So one of these people that's in Pulaski's Legion, this turncoat, if you want to call him that, he rows out to their ship. They say to Ferguson, you know, this guy Pulaski is out to get you. Ferguson says, okay, we're going to go on shore and we're going to kill as many people as we can. So they sneak onto Osborne Island, and they sneak up the road, and they see Pulaski's Legion sleeping this peaceful sleep of patriotism, and they launch into them and they stab them with their bayonets.
Attacks at night, most times, were done with bayonets, and sleeping men don't put up much of a fight.
Pulaski, who's about a mile away at his headquarters with more troops, comes over, dislodges them. The British run towards the ships, and they get to where the little bridge is, and they take up the bridge, and they run across the bridge, and meanwhile they're being pursued.
So it was a quick battle. That's the British version.
Patrick Ferguson is shaped to be a protagonist in the Egg Harbor expedition, which needed to be concealed. It was a debacle for the British.
A response to Pulaski's story was published in a New York paper under the pseudonym Eggshell, believed to be Patrick Ferguson. The article refutes Pulaski's story and sparks a debate of the event that persists to this day.
Pulaski's trap was sprung in a decisive counterattack.
Pulaski was sent to try and stop the British. He didn't make it in time.
Well, wait a minute. If the truncated version of the stories that we're receiving are thin, and in fact, when we open the books, tend to be not quite accurate. We need to question how things actually happen. The historian has to ask the question. If the question is never asked, we don't have history.
History is told in stories and passed through time like a game of telephone. The accounts from both sides are colored by opinion, objective, and the beliefs of the storyteller. It's not that there is no truth, but we often overlook the nuance in our search for one true, simple answer.
When the British land on Osborne Island, there's a farm, and they get the local person on the farm to lead them. They under threat of violence. Now, he's a Quaker, so he's sort of neutral, but later he has to justify that he wasn't a traitor.
On October 16th, an oath of allegiance was administered by Pulaski Legion officers to area residents.
The people of Little Egg Harbor, who are mostly Quakers, they make them take oaths of allegiance to the Republic. Somebody thinks these people are not on the side of the United States.
One can create in narrative any perspective. Part of what you're grappling with in the story is what a lot of oral tradition came up 5 generations after the battle, based on very fragmentary information.
Polly Miller tells the story or Salter tells the story, they're quite often emphasizing how the people in Little Egg Harbor are really these closeted patriots who would have been patriots and stood up to the British, but they couldn't do it because there was too much danger. And it's a more insidious idea that they're really mostly loyalists or Quakers who are trading and making money about trading between the sides.
Now we look at DNA, looking at history, trying to change things. Smithsonian just did a whole special on that. It's always changing. Whatever you read in this year's book may not be in next year's book. And that's the real fun of history.
It's just interesting that whatever your lens is, you're going to find different kinds of things.
The lens that we use today is 250 years removed. After the affair at Egg Harbor, there were still several years left in the war. And as the British retreated, the question of who took the victory was left for history to answer.
A month later, they rebuilt the town. They got new ships. They started up again. It was too important not to. And the British showed their citizens, hey, we stopped them. They really didn't.
They did accomplish part of their mission, but not the main mission. There was no way they were getting up to Badstow.
The British fleet tried to sail out, and the British frigate, the Zebra, got stuck on a sandbar, and they tried to lighten it by taking guns off of it, but eventually they burned their own frigate.
You learn from history, and that's what we're trying to document. These were the beginnings of our country. The histories happened here. You know, I could point to a lot of historic events that seem to be reoccurring now. People are choosing sides. People chose sides back 250 years ago. Hardly anybody who's driving over that Parkway Bridge gives a second thought to the Revolutionary War. But one of the biggest battles that helped decide the Revolutionary War was here. And when you go over that bridge, this is where it happens.